Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. Have you ever wondered how to be a little more savage? Stick around. Good morning, Giants. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Ryan Morris, and as always, I'm here with your host, Nicholas T. Smith, the author of The Giants and the Smalls. There's his forearm in focus, in view. In fact, this morning, my camera was not in focus. My background was like all crisp and awesome, and then I was like blurry. So
Blurry
Amy told
faced.
me, go like that. Wow. And here I am in full 4K.
I just keep hearing songs, man. Here I am.
It's
I
right.
feel like a hurricane.
That's how it is this
Yeah,
morning.
that's
But
why
in a
we don't
flash,
sing.
I showed up, and here we are, all together now. If you haven't joined us on YouTube, go ahead and do that. Hit the subscribe button so you know when we go live every single dang time. Come join us on Facebook, Tribe of Giants. We have a gift for you there. So come over, Facebook, a Tribe of Giants. It's a
It's a
magical
pretty
place.
big gift, man. It's
Pretty, it's a pretty
it's a
big gift.
$500 gift at
Yeah,
least. Yeah,
probably should go over there.
yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
We
Do
got our
it.
Sum Gigante group coming up. We got a retreat coming up. We've got
Free webinar this
Thanksgiving coming up.
Wednesday.
Christmas is coming
Thanksgiving.
too.
Yeah. the goose is getting fat.
What else do we got coming up, Nick?
Well, on Wednesday we're going to do another free webinar at this time 12 p.m. Mountain, which would be 11 a.m. Pacific, which will allow just about everybody to be there. So on your lunch break, come join us for about an hour. And outside of that, just what you described. Oh, the Upgrade Your Life tour coming up in September. If you haven't got your seat for that, you got to jump on that right away. So
Panama
we'll put a
City
post
Beach,
in the
Florida.
comments.
Upgrade your life tour.
Yeah.
.com.
.com.
It's gonna be a good one. Follow Tony Schmaltz, Laban Ditchburn.
you know it's good when we get Amy snorting here. So. Well, we're gonna have a
Just
great
the
show
one
today.
snorter.
You know, we've got Amy
the one.
Bernier. You know, if language gets in the way of learning, you might not want to be on the show, but this will be a good one because we're going to use some language in it. But let me tell a little bit about Amy. She was just recently in our SG group and created some miracles in her life. She's a recovering people pleaser and overachiever who learned the hard way that saying yes to others without considering herself first is a recipe for disaster. So with this philosophy in place, she taught public school for 10 years until physical and emotional pain in the form of chronic back pain, anxiety, and depression drove her to stop teaching, reevaluate her life, and redesign her priorities. This new lifestyle is one filled with learning how to say yes to yourself in little and big ways, and ultimately from the inside out. Throughout this years-long journey of saying yes, Amy's explored multiple new avenues of sharing her gift of teaching and speaking through one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and courses. And she now combines all of these experiences and pulls from a well of wisdom and intuition as she guides her guests on the Being Brave with Amy B podcast and her clients in the Being Brave, Finding Your Voice as a Leader program. So she's phenomenal to work with. She's out there hustling every day, and we're glad to have you on the show so that we can share your journey. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
It's this would be our chance to just let everybody know Amy B, the way we know Amy B, the savage. Do you want to share a little bit about this savage?
By the way, though, this was the bravest shirt that I had at the moment. Like, I'm gonna be brave, like the Flash.
AK, the only one clean.
That's right. It had a fabric softener like sticking to it, a clean, right?
That's would have been brave to wear any other shirt that I had. But I chose this one.
Well, we call you the savage. You know, do you want to talk about that a little bit? What does it mean to be savage?
I would say savage is just a fancy word for not giving up, for, as Nick would say, re-engaging and re-engaging and re-engaging after you've had experiences that you may feel have knocked you down and, have put you in a place where you don't think that you can keep on going. That's an experience that we all have in little and big ways. And I think, like, Nick will have to clarify because he's the one that started calling me savage. But really that wake up and keep going, wake up and keep going, wake up and keep going, and just keep going.
Yeah. And
I
if you
mean,
miss that part, keep going.
right. I mean, I've reflected on that a lot, and it is a choice to keep on going, but so many times in my life, it hasn't felt like I've had a choice. So in moments where I didn't feel like I had a choice, I just kept going. I just tried something new. I just sat with myself and asked myself, what is the next right step? Or what is the next step that just pops into my mind? I've been in enough circumstances where I had no idea what I was doing, and just doing the next right step was the next right step, I
Yeah.
guess.
Well, the word savage, if you look at brave means to be savage in a way. It means to really just go after things. And I've witnessed that over the past 3 months with you going through our SG program. Like you definitely transformed your life in big ways. So we want to kind of explore your journey, not just that recent journey, but the whole journey, like going back in time, looking at maybe your development, going through the unconscious phase where perhaps you felt like you didn't have a say in your life. Maybe you just thought this is the way life is, other people are successful. That's not me. I don't know, anything along those lines. Do you have a moment that you could start from?
Sure. My perception of what makes a person successful from a very early age was getting good grades, being good at everything, taking care of everyone else, and making it seem effortless while doing all the things. And that was the way it was in high school, elementary school, middle school, college, grad school, teaching. I really became really quite good at being able to what's the word? Know what people needed, or think that I know what people needed before they actually expressed their desire for it. Always focus really hyper vigilant around noticing people's moods and giving them what they needed or what I thought that they needed. And I was that person that everybody went to when they had a problem, they needed advice, they needed help, they need somebody to drive them to the airport, to help them study, to pick them up from the bar when they're drunk, like all of these things. I was like the
Thanks for that.
go-to person.
Right.
At one point, I was like, fuck this. And I like would turn my phone off when I would go to bed. And that was like, I was like on call all the time. It was like, oh, somebody might need me, so I better be available all the time. And this was all very, very unconscious. This is my desire to be liked, my desire to appear successful. The idea was very conditioned to believe that, the American dream is what I was supposed to want, like the house, the kids, the full-time job, all that stuff. And I had a moment when I was 24. It was my second year of teaching, and I was living in Baltimore City. And it was the first time I was like out of my parents' house, out of college, all of that. And I would come home exhausted, have like a pile of grades of things to grade, like multiple bags of things I was needing to do in order to be ready for the next day at school. And Oprah was still on television at that time, around like that 4 o'clock time slot. And I remember seeing this show, and I'm I'm sharing this because this is a moment that changed my life. And she had this guy on that was paying people like $1 million to do the thing that scared them the most. So, like, one person was afraid of riding on elevators, they had a phobia. Another person was afraid of sharks. And so each person worked with this man to like coach them to be able to face their fear. And when they faced their fear, they shared it on Oprah, of course. And then they got like their $1 million. And that really planted a seed for me because I was thinking, well, if I face the thing that I'm the most afraid of, then does that like obliterate like all the other fears that I might possibly have? And so I had that thought, and then that really drove me from that point forward, even though I didn't know it. But I also realized I asked myself the question, what was the thing that scared me the most? And the thing that scared me the most was never traveling, settling down in the town that I grew up in, having the American dream. The very thing that I was conditioned to believe were the measures of success of, wife, mother, house, picket fence, all of that was the very thing that I did not want. I was afraid that if I followed that path, then the things that I really wanted to do, like travel and go sailing and go all around the world and talk to people and have this life, that I would never get to do that. And it was interesting because I had never realized that before. And I would love to say that there was like a lightning bolt and it was like, fuck this, like, no, I'm gonna change my fucking life. Ah! Like go to school the next day and like resign and be like, peace out, bitches. Like, I'm not doing this, because in the career span of a teacher, like you go to a school and you work for till you're 60, then you retire, and then that's when the fun starts, right? And I was like, I love the school that I worked at. I loved it. I worked at a middle school. We opened it together. All amazing teachers, and it was the best experience of my life, the best 3 years of my life. And it was 20 minutes away from where my parents lived. It was, the suburbs. And I'm like, this is me repeating the same thing that I've experienced my whole life, and that's not what I want. So within a year, unbeknownst to me, things started to happen in my life, because I made that realization. And it was either that year or the next year. I went on spring break. I went to Key West, Florida. I met a professional sailor. I fell in love and I moved to Newport, Rhode Island in like 4 months. And so look how like that realization and then the means by which to leave where I grew up, to live on the ocean, to have a different experience happened in a very, very fast way. And I didn't make that connection. I was just like, I just was more open to having more fun and having more adventures in my life than ever before, even if it took me out of the experience that I was currently having, aka the experience I was the most afraid of staying in.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So there's a pun in this for you. Was it smooth sailing from there on? Yeah.
No,
No.
no, no. I wouldn't say that, looking back, I wouldn't say that any decision I made was smooth sailing. I was just constantly like savagely open and willing to say yes to just about anything that could take that a million different ways, right? Many inappropriate, but that's not how I'm meaning it. I worked on 12-meter America's Cup yachts. I worked on a schooner. I was an assistant manager at a foul weather gear store. I worked a temp job. I, lived in a bunch of different homes. I had lots and lots of experiences. Because when I said yes to doing that, I quit my teaching job And then I was like, oh, it's cool. Like when I'm out, they need teachers everywhere. At least that's what they say. It took me 7.5 years to get a teaching job up there. And I had to was like 3/4 of the way through a master's degree by the time I got a teaching job. So things didn't go to plan. And therefore I was forced to say yes to all of these different things. I was an office manager for a yacht brokerage for 5 years. Worked in a shipyard. I mean, I did all of these different things. And I will say that the whole time I was having these amazing experiences, part of me wasn't fully present to the amazingness and the adventure that I was really experiencing, because I had this narrative in my head almost the whole time that said, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. This isn't what you're supposed to be experiencing. You're a teacher. You're a teacher. You're a teacher. What the fuck are you doing? Like, get back into teaching. And so there was all this pressure built up around teaching. And so when I finally did get a teaching job in Fall River, Mass, about 30 minutes away from where I lived, that's when things started to get really interesting, because I finally had the thing that I thought that I wanted all of this time.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So things get interesting. One thing that we see when people are going through their journeys is that they'll be unconscious for a period, and then they'll wake up to that and want to change it. And then there's a level of like grief, depression, anxiety that comes up of, man, what next? And then also, I don't feel like I'm measuring up either socially or internally. I just don't feel like I'm measuring up to where I should be for this phase of my life, right? And so, can you speak to that a little bit? Did you go through somewhat of a grief cycle where you really had time to sit with your emotions and your thoughts and your projections about yourself?
I would say that for a very long time, I didn't allow myself that space. That, yes, I was floundering because I didn't know how to define myself in this, this sailing culture. I was like, I don't know where I fit in. It felt like middle school all over again, where I was compromising really who I was. I'll be honest. I was out at the bars with everybody, like, all the time. I was smoking a lot of cigarettes, ended up becoming addicted to cigarettes. Yeah, drinking often. And when I just was trying to like be a joiner because I didn't want to like be left out. And they call Newport, Rhode Island a drinking town with a sailing problem. And it's fucking true. Like, it's one of those places where, a lot of tourist destinations are like that, including like skiing places and, sailing places and stuff. Where if you want to remain in those college years through your whole life, that behavior of like partying all the time, you can live there and do that. And then slowly but surely you become the old sad person at the bar, and you'd see people like that and you'd think like, oh, that's so sad. They're such a good person. They're such a good at what they do, but like, what the fuck are they doing with their life? And I spent a good amount of time avoiding how I felt and actually making a lot of decisions that I wouldn't ordinarily, upon reflection, it's not like in alignment with who I really am, in order to be included. The thing is, I realized when I was in high school, I had this light bulb moment that I kind of wish I had held on to, but you get it and then it goes and then it comes up again when you need it again, is that if I was to truly be myself, I would never fit in anywhere and I would fit in everywhere all at the same time.
Let's
So
I've got a thought coming up. I want you to explore this and run down this path with me. What is the cost of inclusion? Does that make sense? Like fitting
yeah,
in. Yeah, go ahead. Like what comes up as you hear that?
I mean, like, and what pops up for me here is I wanted to be included in the town. I wanted to be included in like my teaching community. I wanted to be included in, my boyfriend's friends at the time. Like I wanted to, like, everything. I sacrificed everything. And I sacrificed my identity. Like I just created myself to fit in with whatever group I was in at the moment. And I didn't realize I was doing it. It is part of my personality to be able to connect with different people with different parts of my interests or my personality. But so it's like, it can be like a very genius, very effective tool for creating community and connecting with others. But like, there's a dark side to that too. Like, if you
Yeah.
take it too far, then I lost myself. And when I started, in a way, like making decisions for myself, people were like, "You're different, like you're not yourself."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my friend Lisa, who we were roommates for a time, and she was always working at restaurants. So I would, whether I was teaching or doing something else, I'd always visit her at the restaurant and we'd like catch up. And she was like, "I just want to remind you that you're not different. You're just like not going along to get along anymore. You're the same person, Amy. These people that are saying that you're different, like they never knew you to begin with. They
Huh.
only wanted you to be in their life as long as you were making their life easier and making
Mm.
them feel better about themselves." So that person, her name is Lisa Bergadamo, really helped shift things for me in that way.
There
Because
could be a lot of distress too, right? In the idea of not being included, there can be a lot of mental distress that comes from that, where we think we're broken because we don't fit in, and so what came up as you heard that? I saw that kinda
oh
hit.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like, but it got to the point where I was like, this isn't who I am. Like, I have to let I have to do the whole fear of missing out thing is bullshit. And it was actually a very, very, very hard thing for me to do, because I was really connected to wanting to be liked. I was really connected to wanting to be important, even if that meant being helpful.
Mm.
I had designed my identity around other people. And when I didn't have that anymore, it really, really, it was hard. There was depression, there was anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
At what point did you start being okay with you? At what point did you determine, I'm good where I'm at, my life, might not be my ideal, but I'm okay. Was there a point that you reached that where you became kind of at peace with where you were?
It took a long time to get to peace.
Okay.
For me, it went from like emotional anguish to physical anguish, back to emotional anguish, depression, anxiety, to the point where I believe that I created the chronic back pain that I was in. And I created scenarios where, I was teaching, I was under so much stress. I was hired for a job that no one had been able to keep. And I was determined that, well, you haven't had Amy Bernier employed with you yet. So I held myself to this superwoman, like, set of expectations for most of my life, thinking that, like, if I worked hard enough and if I was, curious enough and got the right information, then success was inevitable. Now, success was measured by other people's expectations. So in the pursuit of that, I found out I was hard of hearing. I found out that I was ADHD. I found out that I had 2 herniated discs in my lower back, and I forgot to pay for my last semester of grad school. Like all of this stuff. And I was smoking and I was drinking and I was gaining a shit ton of weight. So it was like all of these things. I wasn't listening to the little voice because I had never been taught to. I
Mm.
wasn't listening to my body because I had never been taught to. So it wasn't until everything in my life was crumbling down around me, meaning I couldn't walk and I couldn't get to work. And I had a boss that was like, "What the fuck is your problem, Amy?" Instead of like, "Oh my gosh, like, please go take care of yourself." that was when I was like, I have to start saying no. And that was when, Laura Cannon asked me, she said, if this was happening for you, why would this be happening?
Mm.
And again, like I thought, oh, I'd love to tell the story that it was like a lightning bolt realization, but it wasn't. It was a slow unfolding of I would never have stopped constantly doing, constantly giving, constantly trying to be the best, constantly overthinking. I wasn't. And the gift in, complete physical breakdown is you're not going anywhere. All you have is time with yourself on the floor with your dog and this incredible pain. And things get clarifying pretty quickly in that you will do anything. And I mean anything to get out of pain like that.
So that's an awakening point for a lot of people. I know that pain often causes people to reflect to such a degree that they're contemplating all the questions of life. Is it even worth moving forward? And the value of moving forward is often you have this resolve to create it differently, right? You have this resolve to fix it, change it. Dr. Gabor, I think he's a doctor. Maybe he's not. Gabor Mate. Maybe I made that
Should
up.
be.
But he talks about grief. Grief is the antithesis of trauma. He says the direct opposite of trauma. And I'm going to tie this in though. If you look at your life the way it is, the difficulties, the depression, the sadness, grief is the healing process that allows us to move through that to a more accepting and loving space. Because if we don't sit in our emotions or sit with our thoughts, then we don't do the healing that's available through grief so that we can have a better life, right? So we just keep living back into the traumas and the hurt, and there's no coming out of it. So he offers that it's a way for us to heal from some of that darkness that we face, the hard times. Does that make sense? Oh, you're on mute there.
Sorry, I had a little misstep with my earphone. I had been in such a habit, such a pattern of staying busy, of focusing on others, of doing all the things all the time for other people, that it was this pain that forced me to have these realizations, forced me to stop, forced me to start saying no to everyone, which was a really interesting and scary process to go through when you're used to saying yes. And so my company, Say Yes Coaching, was born out of, say yes to you, saying yes to you first before you say yes to anyone else. And that really started in around 2012 was when all of this really began. The pain began and the slow realization that I couldn't do this on my own. Like I had to move home. I had to have back surgery. I had to do a lot of things that I said I would never do. And it was like starting over again. But this time believing that I had choices and that I didn't have to make the same choices that I made before. So I got super fit, like CrossFit, kickboxing. I did all of it. Things that I never thought were possible. But when you're on the floor and you can't move and you call your parents and you're like, I think you need to take me to the ER because I can't get up. You start having conversations with God, whether you've ever had conversations with God before. And I remember saying, I'll dedicate the rest of my life towards being healthy physically and mentally in all the ways if this can just be over.
Yeah.
And the day I had back surgery was the day I was like, I can't do this anymore. It has to be fixed today. Because to live a life in chunks of 3 hours, they say the pain medication lasts 6 hours and like all of this stuff. But the truth is, it doesn't make the pain go away. It just makes you care about it a little bit less. It gives you just a small gap. And I couldn't imagine a life without pain. I couldn't imagine 3 hours from now. Like, thank God my brother like figured out how to like allow me to stream movies illegally because that's all I did. I lived in a friend's basement with Roxy and I
Yeah.
watched movies to try to get myself out of the pain I was experiencing.
Yeah. So let's speak to this because you're talking about tools here a little bit. We want to return to our power. It's really hard to return to your power when all you can see or feel are the current emotions. And so sometimes we use things like medication can be one of those things that softens the emotion enough that you can actually work on the deeper stuff, right? You have room for it. Or if you're in pain constantly, having it just even softened enough is enough for you to like re-engage with life in some degree.
Yeah, I would
Watching,
say
yeah,
I would say that communities on Facebook saved my life.
okay,
Like,
yeah,
saved my life in that I was able to talk to people that were having similar experiences or
cool,
people that knew me as a whole person before I was experiencing this level of pain. I was able to connect with people even though I was not moving at all and
yeah,
I didn't know what was going to happen and I didn't know how the pain was going to go away and I just didn't know because when your mobility is taken away and when you have mobility but that mobility puts you in like mind-blowing pain so much that you can't even hold a thought in your head, like where do you go from there? Like,
yeah,
yeah, there's grief. I cried. I think Roxy, I learned that presence, having someone, even if it's an animal, not run away from the uncomfortable experience of being with someone that's going through something massive.
yeah,
You know, no, I couldn't understand people that were willing to spend time with me because I was like, I can't do anything. Like, it was confounding to me. My identity was wrapped up in my ability to do. And, this dude even fell in love with me. And I was like, I can't receive that because look at me. Like, look, I can't give you anything. And there was just a lot of lessons learned. I
yeah,
will say that I cried at the doctor's office to that doctor, the surgeon that just it was like a little tiny back surgery. It was like, do, all done. And I cried. I have never felt, I don't think knew what gratitude felt like until I was at my like 2 week after my surgery thing. And I was like, thank you for choosing this profession. Thank you for giving me my life back. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And like, like snot, the whole thing, you know? Because now I could imagine my life differently.
yeah. You hit on gratitude just briefly there as a tool. Can you talk about the importance of gratitude if it is even important to you? Do you
I
find
have
it
a
as a
really
useful
hard
tool?
time.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with the word gratitude. It
Okay.
doesn't hit me as it's like a looking back and saying thank you. The word that really kind of activates me in the present moment is
Sure.
appreciation.
Okay.
So I try to do like appreciation waterfalls because it's like you start with the small things and then it gets bigger and the momentum just kind of like carries you and then you realize like there are so many things around me to be grateful for.
Yeah.
The word gratitude to me I hit a wall. Like it doesn't activate in my
Yeah, let's
body.
let's talk about appreciation. That word appreciation means to add value to or to increase the value of something, some experience, something, right? So
Yeah.
it's in a way, it's looking at what is and adding value to it, making it mean something.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And for me, um, that was something that I can tap into. And I'm also a verbal processor, somebody that like has realizations as they're speaking out loud about something, so that like the power that speaking has in my life kind of really amplifies
So
the energy of that.
all 50,000 thoughts that you have a day are coming out your mouth. Is that what you mean, like a verbal processor? Or
No, it means
okay,
that sometimes I need to have a witness, even if it's just myself, as I'm talking out and connecting
yeah,
things um, in my head. So if I'm having a challenging experience and I like talk out loud to myself in my car or to a friend, I'm more likely to in the moment have the like and make the
yeah,
connection than if I'm just sitting in a room by myself with
yeah.
myself. It helps to have a witness.
It gives
Um,
some reflection, right? Like sometimes we just speak and
that's true.
and
Thank
it's
you.
just coming out, but we're not hearing it. So there's no bounce back so that we can hear what we're actually speaking, right? And
Right.
so having somebody there that can listen and reflect back what we're saying will have us hear it in a way we've never heard it before, even though we're the ones that said it, right? We're just not hearing it because we're so busy speaking it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I find that I don't even need someone. Sometimes I do need somebody to speak it back to me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's just the action of saying the things that I'm noticing out loud, and then in the
Mm.
process of saying them out loud, I'm connecting
Yeah,
and
there you
connecting.
go. I
Oh,
like that.
that's connected to this. This is connected to that. Oh, like
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. Not everyone has that. Some people can journal or have an
Yeah.
internal conversation with themselves. um, I can do that too, but if I want to get to the aha moment faster, I get on the phone with
Yeah,
someone.
that's me too. Yep. Yeah, so let's talk about this. So it's not like you just learn these things and you're done, one and done. You've got it figured out. You never have to go through this again. It's an ongoing process of mastery because you find other areas where you're playing small and you do it again and again and again. But what I want to talk about is vision, like purpose and vision and how you anchor into the dream or the ideal that you have in mind. And then if we can tie into it surrender and nurture, like how do you grow it while kind of letting go? Because you don't always know the path. Can you speak to that a little bit? Is that too many questions?
that's that's all of them at the same
That's
time
every, that's all I got.
for the rest of the interview.
Go ahead and wrap us up.
We spewed them all out.
Yeah, could I have one question? The
50
first question.
50,000 to 70,000 questions instead of thoughts,
That's
right? Yeah. What was your question?
What was my question? What was the
right.
question? What
Oh,
was
ask.
the initiating question of the multiple
First
questions?
one,
Yeah,
vision.
vision and purpose. Like, how do you anchor into your vision and purpose? And what does that even look like to you when you think about that process?
Before I could even have a vision, I had to realize that who I was could be useful in a large way. Like I actually had to value my experiences and value who I was as a person before that seed that was planted in me, that was, I'm here to help shift humanity. I'm here to be an example of what's possible. And share what's true, not the highlight reel like we were talking about the other
Yeah,
day, but
yeah,
what's real. Like I think the biggest challenge I've had in my life is that everybody's fucking pretending all the time. And I have a really hard time. I mean, like I also pretended for a long time, but didn't even realize I was doing that. Um, but like it was the people that were willing to say like, this is hard, or I'm afraid, and I'm doing it anyway, that really made an impact on me and my ability to show up,
Yeah.
with
So
all parts of me, as opposed to, just the parts that I thought were acceptable, you
I, I
know?
like I like the idea that first you had to create the space where you believed that you could be the person that could actually make an impact on your life, right? Like
Yeah.
that sometimes is the hardest part for people is when we go through those first 6 journeys where you're waking up and you're feeling the grief and the depression and life isn't what you had in mind, we can really judge ourselves as being broken or different or not able or capable of doing anything different with our lives, and then try and create from there. And it's really hard because we have a desire to have it different, but then we don't believe that we're the ones that can make it different. It's almost like we're waiting around for the lottery to come rescue us from our situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think what helped me was every conversation that I had with a person, the connection came from being honest, being true, saying what I was thinking and not curating what I was thinking,
Okay.
and then share from that place. Um, I saw that the support that people received from me wasn't from me saying the perfect thing. It was me showing up as who I am. And in many cases, it was, people think I'm funny. But what I find is, and what they say about comedians is, we're just noticing what everyone else is noticing, but we're just willing to say it out loud. And it's funny because people see themselves reflected back in that weird thing you just said.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like,
We
that's
say
where the
some weird
connection
things.
comes from.
Yeah.
I've always had, even in my phases of pretending to be what people wanted, there was still an element of me being myself. And that is where people felt safe, felt like they could tell me their truth.
Yeah.
And everywhere I went, whether it was, working at a sports bar or being a teacher, what I found was people would tell me the truth, you know? And then I would go out in the world and, like, when you work with kids too, it becomes super strong. Working with kids has made me more brave, and has really motivated me to be braver than even I think I could be, because I want to be an active participant in creating a world where children can show up as themselves and not feel that they have to be something different. Because what I went through and the process of releasing conditioning, and what I physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally went through, I really don't want anyone else to have to suffer
Yeah.
and have to go through what I went through. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And if I can share a story that most people are unwilling to share, and I decided this, and very intentionally, when I was 18. I had just been through a breakup with someone that I thought I was going to marry, that I thought I was going to be with through my whole life. I loved them. They were my best friend, and it just wasn't going to happen. And I remember feeling so alone, because at that point, so many people were having relationships that were, he's cute, I'm cute, like, let's fuck or whatever, And I'm like, I have to have deep connection. You have to be my friend. And that's something that's cultivated over time. And I just remember people not realizing the depth of the grief that I was experiencing. And I was like, if just one fucking person was like, I understand how you feel, it would have changed everything for me.
Hmm.
So I decided in that moment that, if I could choose to share a story, even if it was like not socially acceptable, even if it was about having emotional abuse in my life, about, feeling low, of isolating myself, of using food as, a coping mechanism, I would be willing to share the thing that most people aren't willing to share, if it would help someone not feel alone. Because to me, having pain and suffering, emotional, physical, all that shit, it doesn't matter whether it's emotional or physical. One is not worse than the other. But feeling alone in those experiences exponentially
Mm.
like makes it that much worse. And so it's funny, I've been on this journey of becoming more and more myself for myself, but also in order to give people permission to be real. Like people are like, "You're so brave because you said that you slept in your car and you're so brave." Yeah, no, I'm not so fucking brave. I've got white privilege, right? I grew up in the suburbs privilege. I've got, education privilege. I've got all of that. So maybe you're listening to me because I'm all of those things. But I'm really experiencing something that a whole fuck ton of people in the world experience every fucking day. And I had to sleep in my car one night and it's getting attention. But like there's just so many points of view and cultures in our world that people aren't paying attention to. And, when someone like me shows up and has similar experiences, it can garner attention. And therefore, I can shine a spotlight on what other people are actually experiencing more frequently than and I can tap into the feelings of what that feels like.
Yeah, yeah, some empathy and connection, right?
Mhm.
Ryan, do you have some thoughts around this? I mean, what's coming up as you're listening?
I think Amy taps into there's a lot of there's truth to everything she's saying there because and I like the perspective shift too in my mind as I look in it and I go, "Man, I'm so hard. My life is so crappy. This is happening to me." And then I don't do it like I don't know. I can't even describe the feeling, but sometimes I'll forget to reflect that others have it way worse than I do and on a daily basis. So I appreciate you saying that, Amy, because it when I go through those moving forward, those hard times, those the crappy times, I can shift and I can use that to go, okay, yeah, yep. But then I can also find appreciation and know that look, my life it's not that bad, and there's people that have it worse. Get over yourself, like
Well,
and kind of
it doesn't but it doesn't take away from what you're experiencing. It's just
true.
both and. Like,
Yes,
it does not serve me to say, I'm really worried about money, but other people have it worse. It doesn't, because then that's saying that how I'm feeling isn't valid. How
Yeah,
I'm feeling is still valid. You know what I mean?
yeah,
yeah,
And what other people are experiencing is also valid. I think that it's easy to I don't know. It's just the human experience is, so fascinating because what I found and is that I've been through so many different types of like suffering experiences, unfortunately, and and a lot of people, if not everyone, has had some type of suffering experience and some kind of celebration experience. And we can meet each other there without trying to fix each other, without trying to say, yo, like if you only had done it this way, you would be better. You would be this. We can just be with one another in our experiences and say, on some level, I understand how you're feeling.
yeah. You know what's interesting to me is you hit on the idea of connection. Social connection is so important to the human experience, right? When we feel alone, like we're going through something hard and we feel like we're alone, it feels exponentially harder than if we have like a support group or friends or family that, yeah, we're going through something hard, but there's that empathy. It's even hard when we're going through something hard and somebody else says, well, you should have done this, well, you didn't do this, right? There's that judgment that comes in that doesn't feel accepting even. So there's something to be said about having friendships, relationships, connections that can just hold space for, yeah, it's difficult, yeah, I get it, right? But it gives you room
Yeah.
to kind of launch out of the nest, so to speak, right? Like, I'm going to go explore because I can come back to somewhere safe.
Yeah, I think what shifted for me, because I've known you guys for a somewhat short period of time, yet I feel like our connection is significant. Is if I look back on my life, there's definitely a pattern of chaos and needing to figure things out and not knowing about money, and or not being secure and stable in my money story and things like that. What shifted, sorry for the dog barking. What shifted more recently for me, in the I'm determined to not have this pattern show up again in my life in yet another way, is the actively believing that it can be different, that I
Yeah.
can have an easier, more grace-filled life, and that really starts with me providing ease within my experience and grace for myself. These are
Yeah.
not things that I was taught. So
Right.
yeah, I'm like in my fucking 40s, like learning how to be nice to myself, learning to al- allow other people to give me grace, allow other people to remind me that not only am I a valuable person, but like I've got people that care about me. I didn't start reaching out and asking people for help until like the last couple of years. Like I've quietly struggled for a long time, coming on Facebook saying like I finally got this teaching job, or I finally did this, thinking it was the answer to all of my struggles. And every time I've tried to identify with I'm a teacher, or I'm this, or I'm that, and then like tried to build like a box around it, like the box has been shattered every time. Like I'm definitely not meant to uh you know stay in a box.
Yeah.
Yet our society is so, even our minds like to, oh well, that person looks like that, so they must be like this, or that house looks like that, so this kind of person must live in it. Like our brain is like, oh, redheads are like that, and like bald guys are like that, or
We are.
whatever. Like
True.
We
we
are.
want that one was for you. Like we want to really like classify things so that we can like have more space to like have unique experiences. It's that automaticity that you speak to, that efficiency of our brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yet, like I know that every time I create a box for myself, I'm also going to create a situation where I need to bust out of that box because
Right.
that box is trapping me or whatever. And so to allow myself to continue to be me and to have that be enough without trying to label it or whatever, it's been such an experience. But like visioning and believing that good things are for me, and
Man,
having
this
support
is
in my
big.
life
Yeah.
to reiterate that has been like the most important, I would say. Or not the most important, because if I had gotten this tool, let's say 5 years ago, and I was like, struggling and like couldn't walk and all this shit, it would be like putting frosting on shit, as Steve Hardison says.
Yeah.
I would have been like, well, this is a crock of lies, because
Yeah.
I wasn't able to see beyond 3 hours of time when the pain would get worse again. You know what I mean? So everything builds on itself and spirals back, to learn the next level. Um, so let's not kick ourselves in the pants saying like I should have known this before. But at this point in my life, being able to believe and practice believing and leaning into I'm enough, I'm worthy and deserving, I'm safe. When I show up as myself, magical things happen, miracles happen. Like for me right now, that is the work.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. This is a question that I don't think we've asked yet on the show is what does it mean to be a giant to you? which is weird why we haven't asked that
I
before.
thought you were
But
going to ask, like, what's your favorite color?
what's your favorite
Or
color? And
something like that. Like, if you were going to be a sports drink, which
yeah,
one would it be and why?
which powdered
Well,
supplement are you?
I love you guys so much. What does it mean to be a giant? I think, what does it mean being a giant? Being brave, being savage, whatever, power word we want to put behind it. I believe that being a giant is really about believing, taking steps and believing that who you're meant to be is incredible.
Yeah,
Like, you're amazing. You can do it. You're meant to do giant things. And all you need to do is take the next giant step. You don't even need to know like the massive giant life, giant picture thing. Like, just remember you're a giant. You're here to be your higher self. And whatever that fucking means, I don't know. But you're here to be who you're here to be. And you get to release all the ideas that you're not good enough, that you're meant for a small life. Because I believe we all have within us a spark or a light or whatever you want to call it that's like reminding us in this really small voice, like, you're amazing. Like, you're a badass. Like, go out and do that thing. And sometimes we're so busy, like, thinking for all the reason about all the reasons that we can't do it, that we even forget that like the giant step is always in us, ready for us to take it, you know? And I think being brave and being a giant is about taking that step, taking it and trusting. And then when you're freaking out because you took it, like, go back to your support network and be like, oh yeah, guys, remind me that I can do this, remind me that I'm okay. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
because
Well, that
that's what
I
it
like
is.
that.
It's the ebb and flow of, like, I got this. Oh my god, I got this. I got this. Ah! And then it becomes like, the for me, the taking the step and the return to the confidence, the return to the belief, like that, the amount of time that it takes for me to return to the bigness, to return to the feeling giant, is becoming less and less and less.
Yeah, yeah,
And I remember hiring a coach a handful of years, not a handful, it was like 2 or 3 years ago. I really had to, I really was like, if I could do it by myself, and if it took doing, hustling, thinking, being smart, being creative, then it would have already happened. A really big, giant step for me was realizing that I needed support. Not that I was less than and I needed support. I was meant to be more, and there were things that I wasn't able to see on my own.
yeah,
That was also a massive step for me.
yeah,
We got to see, well, we, people that were in your SG group, we got to see that ebb and flow of, and the emotions of how it all came together. Oh, I can't do that. Oh my God. And then I did it, and then it was like the most, it was the coolest bipolar event in
yeah.
history.
Right.
Yeah. And that's how it goes. And then you can share it. And if you have a group of people that you trust, that love you unconditionally, you can share those things with them and not feel, you can be vulnerable and not worry about the judgments and the, you know, um, I don't know, there was just something magical watching you go through that whole process and still going through it, and seeing what happened every single week because it was like, what's gonna happen this week for Amy?
My,
Join us
my
next week
friend,
on the Amy B Show.
Amy B's live. My friend Sam Castle was like, Amy, every time I go to your Facebook page, I'm like, feel like I'm watching a movie unfold. And I'm like, thanks, dude.
It was.
But
It
at
was
the
so
same, I
awesome.
don't, it's hard to like receive it because like, it's one thing to watch it and it's another thing to experience it.
Yeah.
Totally different experience. But I'll tell you, what is just coming through now is with the SG4 group. For me, I think the biggest impact was I didn't cultivate my vulnerability. I've cultivated my vulnerability as a tool in the past because I didn't feel safe to be 100% vulnerable. And that's a safety mechanism. I'm not mad at myself for that. But in the past, I've seen that vulnerability is the tool that brings people together. So I would unknowingly and sometimes knowingly, not share from a place of like being in it, but sharing from a place of reporting about it. So I was able to like kind of like dissociate from my experience a little bit. And I, in SG with you guys, I just felt like it's time to let that go. And for me to show up like truly scared, truly sad, truly all of my feelings is like the most transformative experience for me because I've had this belief from childhood is that like being me hurts other people or being me like makes me be alone, being me makes people leave me, being me, like all of these stories of like upset and aloneness around being myself. And um for whatever reason, in being in this extreme experience with not having a home and then creating a home 2 blocks from the beach, it required me to feel my feelings. It
Yeah.
required me to be witnessed. And I believe that that's a requirement for stepping into your dreams and receiving it.
Yeah. Beautiful. As we wrap up here, is there a piece of wisdom that you would have shared with yourself going back in time that would carry you forward? Is there something that you would tell yourself?
What if you've always been right? What if you've never done anything wrong? You can trust yourself.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. Man, Ryan,
I'm
additional
just
thoughts?
I'm just proud as hell because it's just been like watching Amy do this. It, it's helping me be brave. It's helping others be brave. Anybody that's been able to witness her um, just creations over the last, I don't know how long it's been, 12 some odd weeks, maybe a lot longer than that. It really started a little bit before that. Watching you um, draw back on all of your experience and remember who Amy B is. That you are savage, that you are a giant, that you're worthy, that you matter, that everything that you want in life is possible. And watching you step into that, um,
Hmm.
for me, has been pretty special to witness. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for doing that for others, not just for yourself, because really, I mean, we do what we do a lot for ourselves, but I've watched other people see you do it, and then they get brave, and then they step into their giant potential. So thank you.
Thanks, brother. Amy, what do you have going on right now? How can people get in touch with you? What programs are you running? Share a little bit about what
Okay.
you're up to. Yep.
So I'm currently running Being Brave, Finding Your Voice as a Leader, which is a group program for people to step into their full expression, their full power, and their full, like, their voice. There's this thing called that I've called the healer's paradox. And it's when you've had some fucked up shit happen to you, you've moved through it, you've created tools, you're on the other side and you're like, fuck
That's the
yeah,
sailor
fuck
version of it, right?
yeah.
Oh,
Right, the sailor version,
Yeah.
yes. Um, and you look back and you're like, I don't want other people to go through what I went through. Like, I want people to have the tools that I uncovered for myself so that moving through the challenge can be um, that more smooth, like less alone, you know? And so over and over and over, I've met these amazing healers and coaches who have these massive stories of challenge. And it's the reason they've become a coach. It's the reason they've become a healer. And they're terrified of showing up as their whole self because there's still a part of them that holds shame and guilt and self-judgment around their experiences, as if people knew the real truth, that I would never be able to help anybody, that I would be shamed, that I would be, ostracized, all of these bad things would happen. So that there's this thing, the thing that got you to be the powerful person you are now is the thing that's like holding you back from fully stepping into your power. I've seen this so many times, and what I found is when you have a safe container where you're never going to be criticized, where you're always going to be seen, heard, and understood, supported, encouraged every step of the way, you don't have to tell a goddamn person publicly about your story. If you shared it in a container where you feel fully witnessed and held, like, transformation happens. And all of a sudden, you're able to step more fully into your power, realize that who you are is valuable and worthy, and like show up as that powerful healer. You no longer have that story that, like, if everybody found out, because the truth is, you shared it. You
Yeah.
shared it. And what your brain told you that was going to happen, like, they're all going to laugh at me, they're all going to run away, it did not fucking happen. And you had that evidence. It transforms you. And so in the Being the Brave group, it's not going to be Being Brave, Finding Your Voice as a Leader. It's now called Brave. It starts at the beginning of July. It's a container where you can step into your full power. You can share your story in as a small or large ways as you want, and then be a witness to what happens within you when all of those things that you thought were going to happen didn't happen. And you realize that because you went through those things, you were that much more qualified and powerful as the healer and the coach that you're meant to be. I have witnessed in just these last 3 weeks in my Brave program massive life transformations. People realizing things that they've never realized about themselves, seeing themselves as the powerful being they are, instead of constantly getting on the I'm small train and holding themselves back. It's just fucking amazing.
Awesome.
And so, my long-winded way of saying, if you're ready to be a healer and a coach who's stepping into their power, stepping into their fully expressed self, then please message me at sayyescoaching@gmail.com. I would love to help you. I would love to support you. I would love to be there to help facilitate, this powerful transformation for you. There's 10 spots, and I'm really excited about filling it.
That's
And
awesome.
side note, I plan to be in Salt Lake City next 2 weeks from now, and I have half day and full day retreat sessions available then. So if you're in and around that area and you want to work one-on-one with me, I'm available. So message me for that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for being on. For those that are watching, we appreciate you. Keep sharing the message. If you haven't gone to the Tribe of Giants to start following, please do that. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube for more awesome videos. We've got over 500 videos and counting. And so go grab those and share them with your friends and family. We love you. Keep doing what you're doing. We will see you on the next episode. Have a great day.